Good morning, Phil. How are you on this fine day?
I'm pretty fine. I haven't got one of those. I've got my usual cup again.
Well, I love the sheep.
Yeah, well, this in this side of the world, the rivalry between Australia and New Zealand. The Australians think uh, we have an unusual relationship with sheep if you're from New Zealand. So that's all I'll say about it.
Well, and I noticed there's three of them, which, if you search for you on the web, you find a relationship with three sheep that are thinking about radiant things. So it's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, there is a bit of a story behind that three sheep thing, but for another day.
So I think today we were going to talk about the various avenues for education and information about the variant configuration world, both LOVC and AVC. And if I remember correctly, you have some type of wonderful new software that you're using for presentations, and you're going to share something with us.
Yeah, I am going to share it, so we'll see how it goes. So today, what I wanted to talk about was, it's a topic fairly close to my heart. It is about VC knowledge in general. So this presentation is focusing on VC knowledge, not SAP knowledge more broadly. So that's where we're focusing. I divide things up into two, or group things into two. So from my view of the world, I see things as either being education on VC or information on VC. In this internet world, some of those lines get a little bit blurred, but that's how I'm looking at it today. And today the focus is looking at the education side. Education side, you can see we've got basically online and we've got physical. So I'm dividing it up that way. So what I'll do with my fancy software is just drop into that.
Look at that. That's cool, man. I really like that.
It is cool. The problem is, Steve, there should be words in these boxes. Okay, so when we look at education, like I said, there's two parts. So to make it simple, the blue is the online side, if you like, and the red is what I call the physical training. And the interesting thing, I suppose, I've been noticing over time that there's a mental shift with people, and particularly with COVID, that mental shift has moved quite a bit, where people are a lot more accepting of online training as opposed to the physical training. Because I think for a long time, people look to SAP as their main source of training, and particularly with classroom and the physical presence, if you like. And so in my background, I delivered the SAP VC training, both physically in the classroom and also virtually on the web. So I've got a view of how that works with their training, which I can expand on in a little while. And then there's other vendors out there, probably more when I do my search. Most of it seems to be out of the US. I'm really not sure what Europe have in terms of third-party offerings with training. You may have a view on that. I don't know, Steve, what you've come across.
Well, from what I've seen, the other piece of the online training is coming from independents, and typically it's more of informational stuff. It's more from like a YouTube video or a Prezi PowerPoint or something of that nature. I mean, even in the CWG, I have never seen anybody other than the two companies you have on here, plus yourself, offering any type of VC training.
No.
So I don't think there's anything else out there, to be honest with you.
No, and for this topic, I had a bit of a search around YouTube to see what was around and around the web in general. But Yeah, with eSpline and eLogic, I know those guys personally anyway, and when you drill in to just looking at their websites, basically, the main difference was eSpline will go on site to the customer, whereas eLogic, the way they advertise it is you go to them. So obviously, with all of that, there are costs involved, often over and above the cost of the course itself.
And didn't both of those companies at one point in time offer training classes after CWG conferences?
Yeah, eSpline used to do that, and actually I conducted one of theirs many years ago after the conference. And I just also have to say that eSpline also promote my online training as one of their options as well. So just to be clear of open about different relationships I might have in that regard. So,
well, I think the other thing that we need to mention here, Phil, is that you know, eSpline, eLogic, yourself with your online training, there's a significant difference between what the three of you offer and what SAP offers. And that significant difference is real life hands-on experience. You know, the majority of SAP instructors that I have actually interacted with, if they have implemented it all, it was a long time ago in their career. You know, with yourself and eSpline and eLogic, these are all companies that are currently implementing, currently hands-on, and have proven their expertise in this area multiple times and in multiple ways.
Yes, no, I agree. I think having that day-to-day hands-on, and I'm in that boat as well. Like, even though I run my online training as well, I'm still actually embedded in a business as well with day-to-day things with VC. So it gives a complete picture, and it's a good comment. I think, and it's not a criticism of someone like SAP, because obviously they're a huge multi-billion-dollar company and VC is like the pimple on the nose of the whole software in lots of ways, in terms of size and visibility to the bigger SAP community. But SAP, they turn out bulk training. They have to. That's just the nature of the beast. And they're a software developer at the end of the day. I know that they've got business people embedded in their development teams and things like that in different places, but you know, they are a software developer, and the way the training is often approached is approached from that perspective. It doesn't follow the flow of what perhaps from a VC point of view you would normally do.
Yeah, so Phil, can you talk a little bit, because you know I'm a big believer in that the younger generations are shifting more towards an on-demand model online.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what's available in that area?
Yeah. So online, if we'll start with this SAP, if you like, on that. So broadly, from my view, they've got two main offerings. So they've got the Open SAP offering, which is sort of like a whole bunch of content about SAP in various areas that anyone in the world can really access and do. And the other one is their Learning Hub. Seems to be like a subscription model that they have, where you pay up some money and you can choose a more, let's say, official course. And often those official courses often reflect what was their virtual physical classroom offering, if you like.
Yeah, and the Open SAP stuff is all free, right? So I mean, it's a massive online open course, or whatever they call that MOOC thing. And the Learning Hub, you know, and anybody can do the Open SAP stuff. Even me, who's not associated with a company, I can do Open SAP. But from a Learning Hub perspective, I think you have to be a customer or a partner, don't you?
I don't think so. Like, Radiant Think itself is not a partner of SAP at all. We're completely independent. You know, we're just not big enough to be that, I don't think.
Oh, they should buy you, man. That would be the best thing for SAP.
Yeah, but no, I did actually register for one of their AVC courses, which they do have in the Learning Hub. and I did it out of curiosity. So I think it is possible, but you got to pay the money, and you can do that with the subscription model that some companies have. They have access essentially to everything. I got no idea what that cost is, but what I tend to find when you look at, say, the VC training on the Learning Hub, it sort of mirrors the classroom course. And the classroom course, in my view, gives you a lot of information. Like, in some ways, I'd call it an informational course, just because of the approach and the volume of information they're trying to push to you. In my experience, the learners tend to be overwhelmed with it, particularly in the VC training, I find, from experience.
So what do you making the distinction between on-demand and virtual classroom? What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so on-demand is basically I can register for the course, and once I've completed any registration requirements of payment or whatever, I can just start, and I can do it anytime I like. You know, if I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and just have that urge to do some VC training, I can do it whenever I want.
That happens almost every day, right?
Oh, yeah. And whereas the virtual classroom, I've called it that because it's like a scheduled date and time. And some of those virtual classrooms, well, they have an instructor as well. But the times I've delivered the virtual classroom for SAP for a 5-day VC course, it is exhausting. And can you imagine sitting at the computer for, say, the 6 hours a day doing the VC course, looking at a screen?
I'd check out after about 30 minutes.
Yeah. As an instructor, I was pretty shattered at the end of it, because I think online it's more taxing on the brain and just taking everything in. So to me, I think the future is more on demand and self-paced training, I find. And the interesting thing is, just jumping off on a slight tangent, the way people structure their courses for VC, it always intrigues me that often there's call it the beginner's course and the advanced course. It's often broken out into those two things. And that just does my head in for a number of reasons. Typically, the advanced course has the content around constraints and learning constraints, whereas the basic course teaches you all the other stuff, like, preconditions and
all the stuff you shouldn't be using.
Yeah. They teach you that first, and you think, oh, I need to know that. And to me, just having that distinction is breaking the workflow that you need to know with VC. So it took me a while. Like, it did my head in when I developed my course. I was in that mindset because that's what I'd been brought up on, a basic course, advanced course. When in fact, from my point of view, when I sat back and looked at it, I went, actually, it's what do I need to know course to actually get it up and running with VC, with the correct building blocks and a workflow and a process, if you like. Once I had switched that mindset, it made it just so simple, really, in my mind. So if you teach constraints as the very first dependency that you learn and treat it not as being advanced or anything like that, it's just the way you should do it, then the rest of it just flows. And constraints aren't hard. They're actually, to me, a beautiful thing. So
you and I must be in the minority, because I've been saying that for 20 years and nobody at my prior company wanted to believe me.
No, and look, and honestly, I'll give credit to the CWG community on that, because I think when we first met, probably at a conference, I think 2007,
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Quite a long time ago now, and we probably had weird communications before that. But when I remember going to my first conference, and my VC knowledge was totally twisted, really, with the likes of, yourself and others that I've dealt with over the years. It all came together that there was a huge gap in the training. We were training the wrong way. And the interesting thing, and this might be a criticism of SAP, is that I don't think I've ever seen at a VC conference SAP advertise their VC training.
So now you're taking me down memory lane, because what got me really going on the whole education part, and it was 2003, I stood up in a Philadelphia CWG conference, and I said, I honestly believe that SAP should be telling us what the best practices for their piece of software is. And SAP stood up and said, we're not going to do that. That's the customer. The customer should figure that out. So that comment right there actually led to my very first article in the CWG Review online, which was, what are the 6 methods to restrict characteristic domains?
Yes. And that was probably one of the articles that started guiding me in the right direction.
Well, that's the thing with SAP and education, is there's multiple ways to do anything. We say in the USA, there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat, right?
Yeah, we say the same.
The question is, what's the right one? And very rarely do any of the training courses guide you down that road. And that's what I really like about the 3 companies we're talking about here, Radiant Think, Eastline, and eLogic, is they try to guide you down that best practice, please do these types of things to be successful road.
Yeah, no, and I agree. If you don't, then SAP ends up with a bunch of customers who are unhappy with VC. VC gets a bad name in the business quite often because it's deemed to be inflexible or whatever. And sometimes it's because of the modeling approach that people have taken. Recently, like I had the case of a company that they offer like 1,500 colors for their product, and to add colors to their models, they'd only do it once a year because it would take them 3 days to do it. And then they recently revisited that design, and with combination of constraints and variant tables, etc., they can now do that pretty much whenever they want. And that is just about approaching your model design correctly.
So we've talked about the on-demand, we've talked about the virtual. Do you want to talk about the physical, the on-site in the classroom?
Yeah, it's interesting. The on-site in the classroom, if we're talking about, say, the PLM 145 type training, if you want to talk about...
And that's the SAP...
basic or beginning course?
Right, that's the actual course number, right?
Yeah. When I did that, the impressions I had of that at the time, and it may have changed, so SAP, don't shoot me if I say the wrong things here, but back then, it was a few years ago that I did that course, or delivered that course. PME VC had been out quite a while. In the training, it was only really mentioned as being available. And I remember that when I delivered that course, I said to people, the manual says use, CU61, use, CU41, whatever. I said, we're not going to do that. We're going to use PME VC because that is the tool to use.
Right.
So what I'm sort of saying is their training at that time had been around a lot of years, but had not been updated as it goes. So,
well, something people may not understand is because I've done a bit of training myself in my career, and I remember when I first started learning about educating people. It was all about, the classroom. That's where I started, was developing classroom courses. And the rule of thumb was that for every hour in the classroom, the developer of the course would spend between 8 to 10 hours to get that material ready for that 1 hour in the classroom. So I understand why, many of the training courses that are delivered in that manner are behind, so to speak. But I'm sorry, I have to diss SAP here a little bit. The PMEVC has been around since 2006, maybe 2007. It's been around a really long time, and they do not promote it in their training, and they should.
Yeah. Look, I think it probably goes back to your earlier point where they almost see, like you said, it's up to the customer to work out how this stuff works. Well, really, if you take a more holistic view, they should be saying, well, if we want to sell this product, we really want to help our customers. But,
yeah, they don't market VC worth a darn.
Yeah, and it's just weird to me, I suppose. But for me, the plus side is it's given me an opportunity to build a business around that gap,
Sure.
and offer something that other people don't offer. And I take your point, like the amount of hours you have to spend to create a piece of content. Like for my online version, I'd hate to add it up actually.
Yeah,
it took a long time. It actually evolved over probably 2 or 3 years, really, as I attacked it, between working and developing it. But you have to do it, and really, I hope in the future that SAP actually do provide more content-rich training and geared to what we talked about the other day, the new generation coming through, because a lot of them won't accept poor training content. They'll just switch off.
Well, and the other part of that is if all you offer them is poor training content, in the end, the acceptance rate of the software will drop. And, SAP doesn't want that. They want to sell software. They don't want to diss their own software. And one thing that I did want to ask you, Phil, you don't mention anywhere in there about mentorship. Does that have a place here?
Yeah, well, I think that's a good question. I think from the point of my training course, you're building in mentorship in that sense, really. You're sharing and guiding how to approach the modeling, and you're passing on your story into a training context. So that's like a virtual mentorship. I think companies that have VC, and we've talked about the fact that us older guys are moving out of businesses, and we are the mentors currently, and we've got to pass that on as well.
Well, the reason I asked that is because, I know a lot of people that I've talked to, they struggle with the concept of mentor-mentee relationships. And many companies have zero formal mentoring in place. And even some companies that claim they do have formal mentoring in place, I'm sorry, they don't really. But the reality is, in my opinion, the training course is like a foundation, right?
Yep.
But then after you take that foundation, you still need to be guided by someone. I don't know if it's within your company or without your company, but that's where I feel the concept of mentoring comes in.
Yeah.
And the one thing I've always hated, SAP has this SAP mentor program, right? I don't know if you've ever tried to go ahead and get into that. No. Major pain in the butt. And I get why. I really do. But I'm wondering if the CWG should have a mentoring program.
Well, I think, no, that's very good. I think unofficially it sort of does. You look at the CWG, there are a core group of people that have an awful lot of knowledge. What I'd like to see out of the CWG, I suppose, is, maybe that's a place where as part of maybe that mentoring is that they almost have a code of practice of modeling. I'm not sure if I'm going in the same direction as you, but it's...
Maybe that should be part of our informational conversation, the next one that we do on this section, right?
Yeah, we've probably talked too long on this one, I'm guessing. But I think, I suppose the closing point I want to make is that if you get the educational part right and get people in the right place, then you get a lot more value out of the informational. You can actually scrutinize it and go, what is good, what is bad. Yeah, so the informational side, I think, will be an interesting discussion as well.
Well, we'll focus on that in our next video, which you and I will probably talk about a week from now. Yep. And until that point in time, I hope everybody out there in listening land has a wonderful reopening from the COVID, because I think just about everybody is starting to reopen across the world now. Although I saw that the Australian GP has completely been canceled now. So it's kind of like, we'll see where that goes. But at any rate, remember, if you like this video, like it, comment, share it, and put it on your social media platforms. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Yep. No, thank you, Steve. You took this conversation in some directions that I hadn't thought of. So excellent as well.
Thanks for putting it together, Phil. Take care of yourself, man.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.